From now on, you will be fisher of men. From now on, you will be a fisher of men. Those words have been etched in my mind. And they'll never leave. It was nearly 3 years ago when this man, Jesus, spoke those simple words to me. My name is Simon. My friends, they call me Peter. When I'm in trouble, my parents call me Simon Peter. My full name is Simon Peter Johnson. But I'll never forget that day. I was standing right here by the Sea of Galilee. You guys might know it as the Sea of Tiberias or the Sea of Gennesaret. But the locals, we call it Galilee. Yeah. Before you start stereotyping me and saying what good can come from Galilee, I've heard all the snide remarks. I've heard that we're backwards, we're country folk, we don't have much education, and some of it's true. But I also know we are hardworking, blue-collared folk. And we do what we do to make a living. Well, I grew up fishing with my brother Andrew, and my father before him, his father before him. He taught me pretty much all I know about fishing, and I know pretty much all there is to know about fishing. And my whole life, this is what I thought I would do, to become a fisherman. But then 3 years ago, I still remember it like it was yesterday. 3 years ago, I had one of those nights where me and Andy, we went out fishing all night long. The entire night we went fishing and not a single fish. I mean, I've been doing this my whole life. Getting a skunk like that's pretty embarrassing. So Andrew and I, we came back, and the other boats, the other fellas, they were kind of making fun of us. Andrew and I, we didn't really want to go home. We were scared of what Mom and Dad would say to us. What did I ever do, God, to deserve such useless sons, such as Andrew and Simon? So we were sitting there, taking care of our nets, and we have to do this every so often, fixing the nets, tying the nets that ripped. The nets didn't rip this time because we didn't catch any fish. We just didn't want to go home. All of a sudden, I out of the corner of my eye, I see this man. He walks into my boat. I mean, a man's boat is his castle. You don't just walk into someone's boat. But after the night I had, I didn't have the heart to yell at him. The man starts teaching. Apparently, he's a religious guy. And then he starts teaching from God's Word. Well, I'll let him teach. Maybe if I'm nice to him, God will bless me the next time I go out. Well, he finishes teaching, and he looks over at me, and then he looks over at Andrew, and he says, "Hey, guys, how'd you do?" As you can see from our nets, we didn't catch anything. He says, "Well, why don't you get back in the boat, and why don't you put your nets out?" Come on. I'm a fisherman. I've grown up with fish. I have more fish knowledge in my pinky than he had in his whole body. Thanks, Captain Obvious, but no, I don't think so. But I figure, well, we didn't catch anything. What harm was there in trying? So I told him, if you say so, Master, I'll give it a try. Andrew and I, we carry the nets. They're not light. We carry the nets, we go back in the boat, and we throw it over. And you know what? We pulled up so many fish that we couldn't even carry all the fish into the boats. We had to holler at the other guys to come over and to help us. It was the most incredible fishing day of my life. This man must be special. This man, there's something about him. And when I got back to the shore, he looked at me and he said, "From now on, you will not be a fisherman, but you will be a fisher of men." And the way he said it, with those piercing eyes, it just caught me by my heart. It's like, yeah, I want to be a fisher of men. I want to be someone special. I want to be someone who leads other people. I didn't want to just be a stinky Galilean that everybody makes fun of. I want to be a leader. Sure, I'll catch fish, I'll catch men and bring them to this person. But, when he's gone, they'll follow me. I like being in charge. And I thought that's what he meant to me when he said those words. But for the next 3 years, this man, Jesus, he showed me with his words and he showed me with his actions what he really meant when he said, "You will be a fisher of men." He took my brother and I and 10 other guys. He taught us and he lived with us. He showed us how to serve and how to love, and it wasn't always easy. Jesus didn't always see eye to eye with me. I tried to get him on the fast track to greatness, but he didn't really see things my way. He always gently reminded me that he didn't come to be served, but to serve. And like in any group, there's always a little bit of jockeying for position. Who does Jesus love the most? Clearly, he loved me the most. But the other guys, who did he love second most? And he would say things that were so pointed, but so direct. He would say things like, if you want to be great, in my eyes, if you want to be great, you have to be a servant. And here's the thing. Jesus, he took a nobody like me. He took somebody who's just a plain old fisherman, not really well educated, no status, no money, no titles. And he told me I was somebody. He told me I was significant. He did this by loving me, by spending time with me, by caring for me, by believing in me. But how did I repay him? I denied him. I pretended that I didn't even know him. You ever had a moment in your life where you just hear the words that are coming out of your mouth, and you know the moment they come out that they're the wrong words? You know the moment that they come out that you've just shoved your foot in your mouth, that you just done some irreparable damage. That's how I felt like when they took my master Jesus away. They took him away, and, I kind of stuck around to see what they were going to do with him. And I was standing around this charcoal fire trying to stay warm, and this little girl comes up to me, and she says, "Hey, aren't you one of those disciples of that man they just took away, of that man, Jesus Christ?" And that old instinct of self-preservation just kicked in. I said, "Absolutely not. I don't know him. I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy." I had the opportunity there to prove my value and my worth to my Savior, but I blew it. And then the servants of the high priest, they came. And here's my second chance. They're like, wait, aren't you one of those Galilean disciples? No, I am not. I don't know this man that you're talking about. And then the third man. This man actually recognized me because I cut his cousin's ear off. That's a story for another time. It's like, I know you. I've seen you. You were in the garden. You're a disciple. And I said, I am not. I don't know this man Jesus. I have nothing to do with him. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. The man who loved me, the man who cared about me, the man who believed in me, as if I was his own very flesh and blood, I had just failed him. I had just denied him. The one moment I could have stood out and really just proved myself to him, I failed. And all those times where he trusted me, all those times where he encouraged me, all those times where he shared the kingdom of God with me, the holy words of God, he reminded me that I would one day not just be a fisherman, but a fisherman. All that was gone. I wonder if you've ever felt like that. You felt like you've done something so horribly wrong that there's no coming back. that you've hurt someone so deeply, there's no possible way for forgiveness. That you've committed a sin so grievous that even the God of the universe could not forgive you. And that's how I felt. I didn't just do it one time. It wasn't like, I slipped up. But I did it, and I did it, and I did it again. I failed Jesus 3 times. And then they killed him. They murdered him right there on that hill of the skull. Calvary, as the Romans called it. They nailed him to that terrible site of torture, the cross. And to tell you the truth, I thought it was all over then. I really did. I didn't think I had any more chance to say, I'm sorry, Jesus. I didn't mean those words. I didn't have any more opportunities to tell him what I really meant to say. I really wanted to say, yeah, I'm one of his disciples. Do with me as you may. I didn't have any more chance to tell Jesus, I love you, because he was gone. And then it happened. Mary comes running. Mary's an interesting woman. She comes running to me and some of the other disciples. She comes running to us and says, he's alive, he's alive. Obviously we didn't think much about Mary. I mean, she'd gone through so much. She was a follower of Jesus. She's actually from a town not far from me. She's another Galilean. She's from a town called Magdala. You probably have heard of it because they make wonderful smoked fish and pickled fish. Delicious. You should go there sometimes. But Mary from Magdala, she had been there from the very beginning, and she was actually there when they crucified him. She watched, and she stayed until the bitter end. And so we thought she had gone through so much pressure that her mind had just broken, but she insisted, I saw Jesus, I saw Jesus, I saw Jesus, he spoke with me. Well, we didn't know what to think of that, so me and the other guys, we went up to a room. We were still kind of scared, so we closed the door and we locked the doors. We really didn't know what the Jews were going to do with us next. We knew they killed our master. We suspected they're coming for us soon. So we got together for a little encouragement. We locked the door. And just like that, Jesus appeared to us too. And it was like a ghost, seeing this ghost of a man. And Thomas, he's always been kind of skeptical. Thomas said, Jesus, I don't know if that's you. Prove it. And Jesus, in his loving way, says, here, take a look. Here's the pierced hands. Here's the pierced sides. He really was alive. And he came and he showed it to us. To be honest, I was so happy to see him. I was at a loss for words. On the one hand, I was so happy that he was alive because everything he had said, it kind of makes sense now. That he was going to overcome death, that he had a greater kingdom. I was really happy that Jesus was alive, but on the other hand, I was so ashamed. See, if Jesus had really come back from the grave, then that means he really was God. And if Jesus really was God, then that means he knows everything. And if Jesus knows everything, then he surely knows what I said and what I did the night they took him away. What was I to do? I was so happy to see him, but I was just so embarrassed to see him at the same time. So I did what I normally do when I'm at a complete loss. I went back to the sea. I went back to the Sea of Galilee, where I grew up. There's something cathartic for me about the sea. Maybe it's the rhythmic rocking of the boats. Maybe it's doing something I'm familiar with. Maybe it's the feel of my hand in the nets as I pull up each of the knots. Then again, maybe it's just because I was comfortable there. I wasn't really sure what my future held. I might go back to what I was doing. I was kind of at a crossroads. So I went, me and a few others, and that night we fished hard. We fished all over that sea. We fished in every single honey hole I knew, and not a single fish. The second time in my life, I got skunked. I'm not a good disciple, and now I'm not even a good fisherman. we're coming back to shore, and there's a guy on the shore. He yells over at us, "Hey, boys, how'd you do?" Another reminder of what a failure I was. It's been one of those nights, sir. Didn't catch a single fish. He yells, "Well, try the other side of your boat, the right side." What do I have to lose? I mean, I didn't catch anything, and this guy, this landlubber who doesn't know the difference between port and starboard, I mean, his advice was as good as my experience that night, so we did. We threw the net over on the right side, and would you believe it? As we pulled up the net, we had so many fish that we could not pull it all up. John and I, we looked at each other. At the exact same moment, we had the same exact thought, but John was the first one to say, that's the Lord. That's Jesus. And lickety-split, I just jumped in the water, and I swam over to him. I swam to the shore. I was so happy to see him. I really was. And when we got to shore, Jesus was there making us breakfast like he has on so many occasions. He prepared some fish and some bread for us, and we sat there eating. And, it's just one of those things. I just didn't know what to say to him. Even as we were eating, I was reminded of all my guilt. I mean, we were eating over a charcoal fire, and I was just thinking back to the last time I was at a charcoal fire. I denied him 3 times. And as he handed me the bread, I mean, was it only a week ago that Jesus broke the bread and said to me, "This is my body. I'm going to be broken for you. I'm going to lay down my life for you. I'm going to do whatever it takes for you." And as we were eating, I was just racked with guilt. Jesus pulled me aside, and I'm really glad he did, because there's so much I wanted to say to him. I wanted to explain to him why I didn't stand up, and I was thinking of all these different excuses I could come up with. He interrupted my thought. He said, "Simon, do you love me more than these things?" It's a tough question. Do you love me more than these? Well, here's my chance to prove my loyalty to him. Here's my chance to really explain to him what was going through my mind. But he just asked me such a simple question. Do you love me more than these? I couldn't tell exactly what these things he was referring to. Maybe he's talking about the boats. Do you love me more than this lifestyle of fishing? The financial security it gives you? Do you love me more than your past? What's familiar, what's comfortable? Maybe he's pointing to the other guys that were still pulling in all the fish. Do you love me more than these guys? And it kind of struck me, all the guys, we all ran away, but I was the only guy who denied him. Do I love him more than these guys? Before I realized what I was saying, I said, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." I said it with conviction and heart. I wanted to convey the full depth of my remorse. And I was waiting for Jesus to say, "Well, I forgive you." But his words kind of caught me by surprise. He says, "Well, feed my sheep." Like, well, no, Jesus, that's not how it works. I say, "I'm sorry." You say, "You forgive me." No, he said, "Feed my sheep." Well, Jesus looks at me again. He says, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And there's something about the way he said it. Maybe because he didn't compare my love with the other guys or love for the other birds. He just said, "Do you love me?" Maybe it's the second time he said it. I mean, it's kind of hurtful, right? I just told him, I love you, Jesus. Maybe I didn't say it with enough conviction. I don't know. He said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" So I said to him, "Lord, you know I love you." He says, "Well, take care of my sheep." And then one more time, "Simon, do you love me?" At that moment, I was cut to the heart, because 3 times Jesus was asking me, do I love him? 3 times I had denied even knowing him. 3 times he was asking me to affirm my love for him. 3 times I had actively denied him. And with tears just pouring down my face, knowing full well that I don't deserve anything. I completely screwed up. I don't deserve any measure of grace or forgiveness. Knowing full well that whatever he said I deserved, I fully deserved, I said barely audibly, Lord, you know everything. And as I said those words, in my mind I was reliving that fateful evening with the girl. You know everything, even what I've done. You know how I've denied you. You know how I've ran away. You know how I hid. Lord, you know everything. And you know that I love you. And in my heart of hearts, I really believed that I loved him. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't this grandiose love, but I really believed in my heart of hearts there was this love for him, however frail, however small, however imperfect and prone to wandering. It was still there. I said, Jesus, you know I love you. And he said, take care of my sheep. And that's when it struck me. All this time, I thought Jesus wanted me to be a leader of men. I thought Jesus wanted me to be fishermen, to gather men to Christ, to lead them, to be in charge of them. And I thought I had lost whatever opportunity I had for serving Christ. But what Christ really wanted from me wasn't just to catch men. He wanted me to care for them, to love them, to nurture them, the same way he did for me. And when Jesus asked me those 3 times, do I love him? It really was the ultimate in forgiveness. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He wasn't trying to embarrass me. He wasn't trying to make me feel any more guilty than I already did. He wanted me to know that his love for me was so great that no matter what kind of sin I've committed, he could forgive me and he could restore me. His love for me was so great that he would be willing even to die for me like he did. And his words, feed my sheep, it's not about me anymore. Following Jesus, it's not about me gathering people. It's not about me being great. It's not about me being in charge. It's not about what I can do or how hard I can work or what I can show off. It's all about what Jesus is doing and who he is loving. And it's about taking care of them and reminding them what Jesus said and did about caring for them and living with them in a way that Jesus did for me. So I guess I've come full circle from being a fisher of men to being a feeder of sheep. I wish you could meet him. I think you would really like him. I know he would really like you, that's for sure. He would care for you and love you in a way that you've never felt cared for and loved for before. And if Jesus could forgive a person like me, someone who screwed up their life so badly, certainly he'll forgive a person like you. Despite what you think you've done, you just have to ask him. And I think he'll ask you to feed his sheep.